Here lies Arthas Menethil II, the last true king of Lordaeron. Long was his reign, unthinkable was his death. May the father lay blameless for the deeds of the son. May the bloodied crown stay lost and forgotten. An Karanir Thanagor, Mor ok Angalor, Mor ok Gorum, Pala am Ravali am. Arthas Menethil. There's a lot of discussion on whether or not Arthas was truly evil, a victim of circumstance out of his control, or an impetuous and impatient paladin who simply lost his way. But regardless of that, we do know one thing. Arthas would eventually become one of the greatest villains in video game history. Music and characterization go hand in hand, and in the case of Invincible and Arthas My Son, there is a lot that we can come to understand and decipher about Arthas, both as a young paladin and as the Lich King. Invincible and Arthas had an instantaneous bond, as a young Arthas helped in Invincible's birth. The two were inseparable, often riding together to get away from courtly responsibilities, and growing closer and closer as the years progressed. Imagine then the sick responsibility of Arthas to have to kill his own stallion and soul animal when he was injured. We hear that same agony in Invincible, the song. The pain and the cascading strings, the loss of Invincible never fading from Arthas' heart and spirit. A young boy representing the 9-year-old Arthas crying out, "Co milito equinus, O steed, my stalwart companion, orbitas lacuna, I mourn your loss, detrimentum ado sola ditas. Alas, I have lost a part of myself." In fact, after the patricide of Terraria, Arthas, the Death Knight, sped to Balnir Farmstead and resurrected a skeletal form of Invincible so that they could never be separated like they had to be in life. The song Invincible represents the inexplicable bond that both Arthas and Invincible share, but it goes beyond even that when we hear that mighty proclamation of the chorus shout out, "An Karanir Thanagor, Mor ok Angalor, Mor ok Gorum, Pala am Ravali am." Long live the king, may his reign last forever, may his strength fail him never. The chorus, in unison movement to add to that strength, we hear sadness and triumph all at the same time. Soaring into that upper register, this song represents all that Arthas could have been and what he became. Arthas, the heir to the throne, became heir to a different throne, with so much loss in the process, so much destruction and decay. Despite becoming an evil presence in the world of Azeroth, Arthas always believed that what he was doing was right. We hear this duality in the music of Invincible as well. We hear the pain of feeling like his back was against the wall in Stratholme. We hear the tragic loss of Invincible, the desperation to bring Invincible back, to never be apart ever again, the loss of Jaina as his love, the one thing that could weaken his vengeful spirit. We hear his desperation as we see him recognize the terror of the Scourge, something no one before him had ever had to witness, rushing to warn would-be victims only to realize that granary had been poisoned and it all slipped through his fingers. But to him, he had no choice but to heed the call of the Lich King, to bring himself to Northrend. Invincible is a song that when we understand the character of Arthas, we can hear his soul in it. The inexplicably profound bond between him and his steed, Arthas's possibilities, what he could have become. We hear the devastation of his choices, the loss of his loves, and all of the other truly tragic things that fueled his eventual descent. But on the flip side, Arthas My Son and the accompanying incredible cinematic, where we witness the true wrath of the Lich King. Despite this being the moment we see Arthas awaken from his long sleep, we can hear the rage in his spirit and in his soul. The same rage we hear when he rips Sylvanas' soul from her body and turns her into the Banshee. We hear the true evil he is capable of. The men chanting, that fast rhythm roaring as his Scourge army awakens from their cold slumber. This cinematic especially is a fantastic juxtaposition between visuals and the spoken words of his father. Killed by his own son's hands, Arthas lost his way. He is the bringer of death and decay, and Terraria is right. Soon he would be king. This cinematic and the accompanying music is terrific because it highlights the emptiness in Arthas. We see him alone, awaken on his throne of ice. Instantly we hear the menace of the Lich King right as it starts. Arthas is no more as he emerges from that ice. An Karanir Thanagor. The young child he is no longer. The juxtaposition of that boy soprano, now in the face of the Lich King. He did become a king. May his reign last forever. May his strength fail him never. His father says, I watched as you grew as a weapon of righteousness. The male choir singing in their lower registers, the horns playing that Thanagor melody in juxtaposition to those words. I think this cutscene does a phenomenal job of showcasing how little of Arthas is left in his Lich King form. He is a devastator, an unfeeling monster, and I'm not sure that even the name Jaina Proudmoore would reach him now. There is only the Lich King. I have to say, I'm a few years late, but finally uncovering the story of this fallen hero was an absolute joy for me. I don't tend to gravitate towards stories where I know that the good character will eventually become evil, but Arthas has such an allure and mystique to him. While he does terrible things to advance his cause, especially what he did in Kel'Thalas and Sylvanas, there's also a component of me that wants to understand his psychology, wants to understand the reasons he does what he does, to understand him, to want to tell him to think of another way before the culling of Stratholme, that there has to be another way. If he would just listen to Jaina and Uthir, I wish he had leaned into that love that Jaina had for him, to see the light given to him as a paladin. To me, Arthas is one of, if not the greatest villains in video game history. He's larger than life, grandiose, nuanced, and Invincible and Arthas My Son do incredible jobs in aiding to tell this multi-layered story. You can glean a lot of information from just these two songs individually, but boy, something about video games and their context and telling that story connected to their music really sends it home. Music is always there to help us tell a three-dimensional story. It is a deeply important element to give us a closer view at the psychology of the characters that we love. But sometimes it's a little subtle. Music can either hit us over the head with a hammer or gently guide us to understanding, and that's an incredible thing. Especially in these songs. The Othanagor leitmotif reminding us of what Arthas could have been. Invincible showcasing the love he had through life and death to his closest companion, and the end of Arthas as we know it, during the incredible cinematic of Arthas My Son. Stories through music are eternal and exceptional. They pierce our souls and guide us to discovery, and in the case of Arthas, what a painful and beautiful discovery it is.